live. I shouldn't do that.
Hello and welcome to Keeping the Beat, an engaging web series hosted live by TNMEA in partnership with the CMA Foundation. Tune in weeknights, Monday to Thursday at 7 p.m. Central Time to learn from and interact with music professionals from around the globe representing every facet of the vast world of music. Today is Tuesday, May 12th, 2020. My name is Jeff Nelsen, and I am the hornist with Canadian Brass and professor of horn at the Indiana University Jacobs School of Music. Tonight, I'll be talking to you about an obsession of mine and an obsession of most people I've been noticing of late, fearless performance in music and in life. Performance is everywhere, and we all have to do it. Might as well do it well, right? So here's the question for us all. Have you ever prepared something and get it to a certain state of quality and then go out and publicly perform it and have it go not quite as well? Yeah, me too. And I got tired of walking on stage optimistically, walking off stage disappointed, so I quit horn. But that's a story for later. Then I came back to it, figured out how to perform my best on my first time, and that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. So I encourage you to interact by commenting here during this live video stream. Share your questions and comments, which I will respond to throughout the hour with the assistance of the truly magical Dr. Jessica Thoman. Jessie will also be interviewing me along the way. She is professor of horn and lots of stuff at the University of Tennessee, Martin, and has been and continues to be the assistant director of fearless performance seminars everywhere. More from Jessie in a moment. Some exciting news as well. Woo, all this talking, I'm getting tired already. Although this is a live streamed event, we're going to post the recording on the Keeping the Beat Facebook page for future reference. So keep your comments coming because those will also remain a part of the archive. More is more here, and I love being helped through choosing what to discuss. It's a big topic. So let's get started. Jessie Thoman, everybody. Yay!
I'm so glad to be here. For those of you that don't know, Jeff was my teacher when I was at IU, so I've learned a lot from him. So I'm so glad to be doing this with you. Yay!
Yay!
Um, so I mean, let's kind of get this conversation rolling here. How about you just tell everybody a little bit about your background? So where are you from? What did your parents do? How'd you get into music? All that kind of good stuff.
I'm from a pig farm 10 miles north of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, eh? Yeah, I grew up as every Canadian does with opera singing, pig farming parents. It's a real normal thing.
Totally.
And from Puccini to pork chops and back again, that's our life story, you know. So, yeah, grew up with the pig farming on the farm and the work ethic of farming, and then I think the classical music in the house. My parents met through singing and then moved back to the farm where my dad grew up. So they continued to sing but did farming. That's what they did, both the farming and the music. It was a great mix. Yeah, and both my sisters are musicians. Well, flute and bassoon, so I don't know how musical.
They're not real ones.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
Hi, Suzanne and Lisa.
Yeah. Hi. Happy Mother's Day, you guys. I should have talked to them yesterday. I'm sorry. Never mind.
Awesome.
I did, by the way. Yeah.
What are some of your what are some of the jobs that you've had?
Yeah, it's been quite a ride. I'm 50 now, and this is my 14th year of being a professor at IU. And I never finished my bachelor's degree. So I'm in the, I think, 28th year of my bachelor degree at this point. And yeah, it's not that the degree, as I say to my students, it's not about the degree being important or not. It's the pursuit of the degree that is the huge value. Sorry, that's not the question you asked. I'm sorry. Um, but it's what you learn through the degree, and through which that, all that pursuit of pursuing the degree is how I got to win an audition in my third year of school for the Winnipeg Symphony. and played a 1 year contract on fourth horn with Winnipeg. Then that year there was the Montreal Symphony audition, and that's when I really, really wanted it. And I got up at 6 o'clock in the morning every day for 4 months and learned a lot about myself and failed quickly enough in the prep stages that I succeeded enough in the audition to fool them into hiring me, and it went on from there. That was another 1 year sabbatical replacement. So I did and then I started having trouble with playing horn and not being able to start notes. So I was going to stop playing horn again. And then I went on a Broadway tour, Broadway show, 35 weeks in 35 cities all over your country, America, our country now. Um, and then one audition on that tour for the Vancouver Symphony, played fourth horn in Vancouver, won the principal horn job there for 3 years later, but then joined Canadian Brass uh, along the way. So I'm just finishing my 10th year with Canadian Brass, kind of on and off with them. And I played a year on Broadway, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. You came and saw that show, and The Pirate Queen, and lots of movie
Yeah.
soundtracks and video games, and a lot of fun, dozens of recordings with Canadian Brass. And then yeah, kind of played with New York, Boston, Chicago, Philly, Cleveland, LA, Toronto. Anyway, much of stuff with the Canadian Brass and in some of those horn sections. So it's been awesome.
That, that's super awesome.
Yeah.
So, you think about it, if somebody's hearing you kind of talk for the first time, they're like, why would this guy need to even think about fearless performance? He's obviously been pretty successful. So, can you maybe talk a little bit about what was the pivotal moment or what kind of made you dig into that idea of fearless performance?
Yeah, I mean, it was an everyday occurrence for me. It probably started in school when was trying to meet a girl or trick her into liking me, and that never went well all through school. So that was my first real massive, seeing that, wow, I'm fine. And all of a sudden I go to walk up to a girl and I freak out and I get so, and then I remember I could shoot hoops at home on the farm real easily and really well. And then my first public game, I drew the foul and was at the foul line and went to do that free throw, but Laura Kalinowski was watching, so I got nervous and the ball never made it halfway to the hoop. My arm just went, because my mind was on this other thing. So yeah, it was a lot of study and what I think I realized pretty early, and had people help me realize that it was a mental thing. That it was when my situation changed around me, and I had decided something about that new situation, that then I did a lot less well than I knew I could. That was not fun for me. So the
Yeah.
first time I experienced it, I left. I stopped playing horn, tried to do other things, and found that I still had that big quality gap in other things. So I guess I have to figure this out. Yeah.
So, what brought you back? So when you quit, what was the thing that kind of was like, oh yeah, I should get back into this?
Oh, good. Yeah, good question. Um, Oh, for horn, it was actually, I had stopped playing horn in the middle of high school, and then I took a year off from school after high school and sold shoes. I was Aldo Shoes at West Edmonton Mall for a year, and then went to go be with my friends. So I went to university in general arts. Thought I'd be a lawyer, but I had to go to what they call classes and read what they call books. And so I got put on probation. And then so I thought, oh, well, I'll start playing horn just to stay in school. Went into music for a year and still I don't think didn't get fired up, or it didn't click for me, or I didn't take it seriously enough and was going to quit again and ironically become a teacher. Actually, I loved my teachers at school, so I thought I could do that. And I share all this just to share with anyone who's watching that I was not sure about what I wanted to do forever. I wanted to be a pilot. I was going to be a cook. I was going to be a magician. I was going to be all these different things. And then my sister made me audition for McGill. And I said, okay, and if I get in, I'll go. And I got in and I went there, and then I started having, I don't know, I guess maybe more exciting concert experiences and quite a bit more learning. I think I was challenged quite a bit more. Second month there, I was on stage in Carnegie Hall as well with the school orchestra. Just like, okay, wow, this is cool. So there were a lot of little moments along the way, I think, that sparked me to figure it out a little bit more, I I guess. And I was more scared too, I think. So I really had to, and realizing that I wasn't going to get around it, I had to figure this out for myself somehow, Nelson. So why not stick to one thing and figure it out?
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Cheyenne McMullen actually asked that question about what got you back into the horn. You
Oh,
remember she
great.
came to one of our
Awesome
fearless
question,
camps a
Diane.
couple years
Yay.
ago.
Hi, Diane.
Hi. So, can you talk a little bit about what fearless performance is
Yes.
for those that are watching that may.
Fearless performance, there's a bunch of, I'm all about quotes, and fearless performance is not necessarily the lack of fear, but a choice that there are things more important than fear. So, and I believe to this day, being 50 and still having a lot of fear, that we're not going to get over our fears permanently. I can do it for a few seconds, and sometimes in concert, I've gone 5 seconds in a row without a fearful thought. Maybe, I don't know. I just keep noticing I got a low tolerance for, and this is what we're developing through fearless performance, what has ended up being called fearless performance. I have a low tolerance for fearful choices. I can notice them pretty quickly. And then I have a huge arsenal of fear replacements, or repertoire of fear replacements. So it's kind of doing that. And I define performance as you're engaged in performance when what you are doing matters. To make a performance a fearless performance, make what you are doing the only thing that matters. So it's just kind of another
Right.
definition of presence, that you're in that note, in that colleague, with that audience, with that piece of music, whatever works for each fear replacement. You know.
Right. So, what do you think? Obviously, you had some experiences that were less than optimal in your studies, getting in school, even just taking auditions that didn't work out. Was there one particular experience for you that was like, okay, I have to sit down and starting to figure out all these things that you just talked about? I mean, that's a lot of stuff to kind of come up with. I mean, it took me years of study and, of course, studying with you to really think about those things that way. So was there something that kind of really inspired that passion in you to like really dig in and figure some of that stuff out?
Great question. No. Um, yeah, I mean, there's a barrage of memories of, oh, I could tell that story. I could tell that story. One that comes to mind, and it was right before we went to Carnegie Hall at McGill University in Montreal. And when I got there, I placed sixth, I think, out of the 22 horns that were there or whatever, to my shock. So I was not in the orchestra. I was principal though, so losing my mind because I couldn't play high to save my life, playing principal in the wind ensemble. And then I got called up one day at the end of the first month of school, and it was to play assistant third horn on the Korngold Symphony. They were going to go to Carnegie Hall. Wow, okay. There were some awesome horn licks. Korngold wrote a bunch of movie music, actually, in America and for Captain Blood and all this. So he loved French horns. So I came into first rehearsal, and it was the orchestra, and I was sitting assistant third, and I was, scared out of my mind. But okay, I'll charm them. I'll keep laughing, and So I was laughing and playing, and probably playing as loud as I could to compete, or I mean, not compete, to contribute. And then this little post-it note got passed along the brass section, and on it said assistant third horn, and it came to me, and I was like, oh, cool, and I opened it up, and uh, it said stop laughing in the conductor's face, ears open, mouth shut, behave like a professional or something like that. And I just kind of was like, and I looked out into the hall, and the hall was empty, but there was one man standing at the back. Ted Griffith was head of the brass department, and I had met him like 7 years before that in Banff. I don't know. So and I just kind of, and he was standing there with his hands on his waist, just like, and he went like that, and he sat down, and I was like, and I just kind of cried and sat there, got through rehearsal, tried to run out of rehearsal afterwards and weave out, and he stopped me in the doorway. I'll never forget. And he finger on my chest nicely, but I just was like, and he says, "You got to behave. You know that those horn players on either side of you are, they have their orchestral face and they're smiling, but they're getting you in trouble. You're getting all the attention and." Like, just chill out. You're gonna play principal in this orchestra one day. And I was like, no, I'll never play a horn ever again. You know, and it was just, I'm gonna quit. I can't do this. You know, and the imposter syndrome. You know, I've been found out. You know that I'm the fake. But it was such a great. He stopped me and just said, "You just figure it out. There's some things that you still need to figure out. Well, playing horn is not everything. Charming people is not enough. You got to find that balance, you know." And so I've been
Mhm.
trying to find that balance. Yeah,
Totally. That's a really, really great lesson. And I
yeah,
would imagine
yeah.
quite
Well
painless.
timed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So could you share some of the central tenets of fearless performance? So what are some of the kind of the overarching concepts and ideas behind this?
The big idea started with, and this is what I started talking about 20, 25 years ago or whatever, 20, when when I was winning auditions. And then when I got into Canadian Brass, I was like, okay, I'm gonna write this book about fearless performance and how to get over your fears and play your best. And this is what everyone was asking me about as well. Um, and I realized that if there's a difference between, here's what, you know, here's, you prepare something to a certain level and then you walk out on stage and it doesn't go quite as well. Everyone experiences it, and I call it the quality gap. So that's the difference between what you can do and what you actually do in performance. So we create those for ourselves. And for me, I realized that that one physical difference for me was the walking on stage. And I'll just show you really quick, okay, the difference.
Yeah.
So this is the practice room version. And then here's the on-stage version. So the only actual physical difference is the walk. Hey, thank you. Now, when we walk, that physical thing, we make choices, and that's when then we get nervous and we change things for ourselves, and we make one of the biggest mistakes is deciding this time matters more.
Yeah.
It's just not a great choice right before you're walking out on stage, you know. If and I think if you have room to choose this time matters more, you just haven't made all the other times matter enough. And
Right.
just make every note dripping with musical intent and everything, and then you never have to play more musically, never have to play better. Phil Myers, the former principal horn in the New York Philharmonic, said casually at lunch one day, he just said, "Yeah, I don't go out there to play my best anymore. I just go out there to play like me."
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just and execute. Olympic athlete, execute each time. So
Yeah.
so the tenant, to go to your question, I practice walking across what I call the magic line. So it's the magic line performance method. There's a magic line between backstage and on stage, and we can practice. We practice so much of our instruments and those techniques, but that walk is massive for the mental game of performance and walking in to Carnegie Hall like you're walking into your kitchen, you know. And we have a lot more access to our
Yeah.
kitchen, so I just walk in there and make it Carnegie Hall every time. If I can walk into Carnegie Hall all day, great, I can get used to that. But that's expensive and it's closed right now. Yeah.
Well, you can just make it your virtual background, right?
Oh, that's true. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Nice. I'm gonna do that right now if I knew how. I can't. You took care of
Um,
all my tech. As soon as you left, I don't know how to do any of this stuff.
so one of the things that was really important to me, if I can interject a little bit of myself in this too, with fearless performance, that I think was really, really pivotal for me was when you talked about why are you doing this? I remember sitting in your office being really, really like I cried more in those lessons, I think, than I have collectively in my entire life. Um, but I remember sitting there being really upset and really struggling and you're like, why are you doing this? What's your why?
Why are you crying, you mean?
Yeah, I'm sure that's what you.
Doing this to me. Just play your horn.
But can you talk a little bit about obviously even through your stories that's been really important to you. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, um, it's and those tears, I have them too, and we've all had them, and it just tears are great. It just means we care. I think if we're not crying, we're really repressing stuff or maybe denying something. Uh, and another guy that I study a lot that I highly recommend is Brendan Burchard, and he says feelings are signals. They're just things to tell us, oh, maybe look at this, and all that. So it was great that you trusted me that much. Thank you for crying and screaming at me and throwing things. That was a little bit far, but that was your horn. But the looking into why is so useful because it can, as I can't remember, I got to look this up, either Nietzsche or Wagner said, that the greatest art appears when the ego disappears. And the ego disappears when we get over ourselves and make it about these greater things. So that's the why is always way better than, I have a lot of just three things. There's the process, technique, our mind can be on there. But as soon as possible, we got to get it into the what sounds are we making? What did Mozart imagine? What's the difference between Mozart and Strauss? Because they both, the French horn was both of their favorite instruments. So how are they different? And then, but why? Why is that note on beat one? Why does it change key? Why are the colors this way? Why? There's such a better place to be, And then Dale Clevenger, first horn in Chicago for just 48 years, he tried it out and then just left. Like, just didn't even commit. And lives around the corner now. Kind of weird. But he said musical thought dictates technique. And that really drove me getting like that. And then, you're building habits. You got to build those habits so that you can transcend the technique to make sounds and tell stories. And the better the why, I think the better the how. It drags it along,
Yeah,
as well, I think.
right.
Yeah, and then there's also reasons why the other looking into the why is why am I walking out on stage? Am I walking out on stage to show off or to avoid mistakes or regurgitate or all these things? Or am I walking out there to seize some opportunities and share something uniquely mine that is of value? If I just regurgitate and play it safe, that's uniquely mine too. My version that I've chosen to keep safe and keep pleasing or whatever the other Canadian things are that I do as a Canadian. But that other way of seizing opportunities right up to the line. I remember I played my excerpts for Charlie Duvall once. And, this is when he was playing principal trumpet in Montreal. Now I think he's in Michigan, and he. Went in and I played my louds as loud as I could and the fast as fast as I could. And he was like, because you're supposed to show what you can do. So I came in and showed what I could do. And he said, "You're
Yeah.
really young, aren't you?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Well, you need the illusion of maturity." I was like, "Oh, okay." So I've been
Some
pretending
good
to be
advice.
mature. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's
and
the
speaking.
reason why. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's all great stuff. Ashley Martin Spriggs asked, and this kind of pertains to this. I think a lot of people think, oh, this fearless performance stuff is like for people like us, right? We're professional musicians or, students that are striving to be in music school or something like that. But I think this is something that we can really start instilling with younger players. And her question um, was, what are some things, how can we gear this towards younger students to give them confidence? And I mean, I think all the stuff that you said really applies to younger kids too. That's a great way to get them excited. Now,
Yeah, and a great way to answer my question for me. I can't. Totally. I know. No, I know. Uh, I'm kidding for the record. If you can't, well, I'm kidding. Yeah, it totally relates. And we did a fearless performance for Buffalo Suzuki Strings. Remember? Yeah, and 100 very young kids doing exactly the same things. I have a 9-year-old son and a 4-year-old son. 9-year-old son, we can tell when he has a quality gap when he plays less. He's learning Moonlight Sonata on piano right now. 4-year-old, no quality gap whatsoever. He's just nailing it, mainly with his head. But Yeah, it's from Yo-Yo Ma to a beginner to my 9-year-old. Uh, we all have quality gap, and it's our own what we can do, and closing that quality gap and learning what works for you. It's such a the Phillips performance stuff that I'm been labeling and figuring out is all templates to figure out your own ways of walking up to the line. Yeah, you asked some of the other things about fearless performance. There's walking up to the magic line method includes all these other tools that are great for kids, like an inspirational sheet. And these are on, like, some of these things are going to be in the handouts that we're sharing with you guys as well. That you read back, I read backstage right before I walk out. I've already done all the practicing. I can't do any more because I'm right at the line. I'm about to walk on stage. So no shoulda, coulda, wouldas. I'll practice more next time. But and then I read, they want you to play well right before I walk out on stage. That works for people of any age, any level, any instrument, any profession. And if you're doing your elevator pitch or a teacher, magician, so it's all performance is performance, right? It's all pretty general. And when I walk out, I read it again. Even when I get to the stand, 10-second walk to the front of the stage. Not a lot of opportunity to learn a lot of new stuff, but a big opportunity to make things a lot worse in those 10 seconds. Expert doubters. So read it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, then play, read it, and all the, go through the different ways. I put stories to all the music. You listen to it and look at it and think, okay, what would be a visual movie or even a painting or a color or something, I guess a sound. You're probably making the sound, but whatever works. Yeah. And you put all that detail to it and yeah, make it your own story. That's one of the only ways to make music totally uniquely yours, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah, and there's
Yeah.
crazy stories coming out of my students with um, big kangaroos with big red punching gloves, having fun with different little bump and all these really fun things that get them over the don't miss aspect, you know. So, yeah, and I
Right.
love doing first performance for young kids and adult amateurs. Oh,
Yeah.
because they're super passionate learners, and less of the self-worth is wrapped up in that. That was my good thing when I quit horn, was that I came back to it, played badly, really well, but didn't feel bad about playing badly. So I could, I think, learn a bit more freely, and that's one of the big gifts of, I think, young players and adult amateurs. Yeah, so
Yeah.
crossover is good.
Awesome. Yeah, I like what you said too, is like so much, especially for little kids, that translates kind of even to that what's your why, where little kids, we get them involved in the creative part, right? And get them to become imaginative. And it's kind of neat how over the course of time and the more we study, which should help us be even more creative, we get less because we are so worried about some of those ego-based
Oh yeah,
things, like we don't want someone to judge us or that we're a bad player, and if I'm a bad player then I'm not as good of a person, and like I mean all those crazy things that I think our brains take us. So it's such an interesting connection between between
yeah.
those.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and kids are rich with, you ask them why are you playing that? Because you told me to. What are you talking, And then, well, what about this? Maybe it's a shark. Maybe it's, baby shark, whatever. And then they go with that. They go wherever we take them or not take them.
Right.
So that's the opportunity when they're young to keep that. They're so present in anywhere we take them. Yeah, the sooner the better, for sure. Yeah, you're right.
What are some of the other tools? I know you've mentioned the magic line performance, which is, the prep of like actually walking on stage and that we practice that. I mean, you had the magic line tape, which I had in my office until we moved to a new building for a really long time. And I loved that. It was so great. That's I think such an important part of the actual practicing of performing. But what are some other ideas that you think you could share with people that are kind of want to get their feet wet a little bit with this process?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I forgot about that tape. That was awesome. And I
No.
did yeah, there's tape backstage in all these different halls all over the place. And when I was getting ready for my TED Talk, I had Magic Line performance parties here with the other TED Talkers, and I would take them through the Magic Line performance method, and we had a piece of tape in the basement here, and they would each stand there and learn, love well, let go. Okay, read their inspirational sheet, and then cross the line. That's really great.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a system. that I'm working on right now with my partner and graduating doctoral student, Katie Webb. And she created a thing called the Musicians Playbook is her big thing. And she reads what's called books and things and is an awesome horn player. And her and I created this online performance training collective. We're putting online courses on there, and that's when we're going to do the Fearless Performance Seminar, online seminar, March. Just kidding. What month are we in? Monday, May 28th to 31st this year online. But we're going to also, the first course we're going to release that lives online in video form will be this training in thirds. God, that was a long premise to this answer. Training in thirds is a course that we're building where I use it for audition training, but you can use it for any performance that you have coming up or project or anything. And basically, you take whatever time you have from now, beginning of your training, till the performance actual, then divide the time up into thirds. And so let's say you have 3 months, and then the cycle through which the training goes is build, share, be. Build, share, be. And so the first third is build. And you're just, if it's, let's say you're getting ready for an audition, you have the audition list, you put your audition book together, you get all the music together, label it, put the score of the excerpt in your book as well, and then fill out some other sheets that help. I've made some sheets that you'll get in the handout as well that help you go through looking up the composer and their story, what they meant, what was going on in the world when it was premiered, and then creating your own story of what country are you in when this music starts, and what's happening to your character, and what does your character feel about what's happening is the big, whoa, the big thing that can switch into making that music your own. Doing all that, and then practicing, learning your notes, intonation tendencies, all that stuff is in your first third. So at the beginning of your second third, you're performing for people, and you're sharing. And you're getting out there, and you know that during that first third. So one of the bonus things that I realized without having planned it, I mean, I did think of it really, is that you have to have all your crap learned at the end of your first third. So that's much more urgency to be ready to play it. And in the second third, you're performing for people, you're collecting their critiques, and openly you're practicing going, okay, what'd you think? Okay, ooh, wow, really? Okay, no, go ahead. And that really, okay. And really getting steeled to take all that critique, but you're learning what people are hearing and trusting who you choose to trust. You don't have to take it all on. You're learning, I love the saying, it's not information overload, it's filter failure.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, from a business world, actually, I think I saw that somewhere. But that's your second third, doing all that. And then this third, you're still performing for people, but your priorities change to what most people neglect. And that is that you're learning how to play your best on your first version. And that's your major priority. Most people are still, trying to figure out that thing the day before the audition or the week before. But if you have a whole month of just you figuring out yourself, so it's build, share, be. Now you're being this music, so you're habiting, and you walk your magic line still every day. But now it's kind of more for yourself and your own versions, self-efficacy, your belief in you being able to do it on your first time, and that's your priority. And you've spent your whole life up until the end of your second third as well to figure out your best stories and your plan and everything. So now let go of trying to get that magic audition winning idea in that third and get to know yourself and be with that music. Still collect people's comments and change maybe what you can affect, but you are marinating in your stories, making them yours. So you be, and then you walk into that audition and it's performance number 127. And by then, and my goal when I'm practicing, sorry, I'm talking so much. My goal when I'm practicing is to have made all the mistakes I possibly can before I'm on stage. Not on purpose, but to at least find out how I can make this mistake. And the only way that works is if when I'm practicing, I'm as focused as I can be. So I practice for 25 minutes at a time. And then I'm trying to play my best and do my best, or experimenting and not sounding good in some ways, choosing my priorities. But if I make a mistake while doing that, the next time I'm going to make that mistake is in concert. So I mark it. I mark my parts. Now, if I'm just kind of just playing through something or playing to get playing done or whatever, and I make a mistake, it's an anomaly. Or it can, I play horn, we miss notes. So that doesn't work. I have to be fully focused while practicing. so that when I make a mistake, it's like, ooh, you're trying to play your best and you missed there. Okay, that's mark your part worthy. Yeah. So another tool is my erasable red pen. I use a red pen that erases better than. There it is. Awesome. Yeah, they're so awesome. Yeah, they erase better than a pencil, right? And you mark something, you see it. It's amazing. Yeah, and they're all these different colors. Yeah, exactly. Your eyes were a little crazy there, though. You're like
Little.
Wolverine. I was playing Wolverine with my 4-year-old today. Anyway,
My God. Yeah, actually, Lizzie Darling asked a question. She's great. She's a flute player. She's awesome.
very
But
nice.
she was asking about the balance between technical prep and mental prep for an audition. And you kind of, I mean, you're incorporating that somewhat into this answer. Can you speak to that just a little bit more specifically, how those two things relate and how they play off of each other? Really, it's kind of like chicken.
Yeah,
You can't have one without the other.
exactly. Yeah, and the balance between them. So you're saying the balance. So the way I look at it is I have to kind of go around a little bit because there's a few different ways I think about the technical aspect and the mental aspect because technique can be mentally the body, but it's taught by the mind still, you know. So let me throw some stuff out and see if this helps. That there's three places our mind can focus at any one point. The lamest of the three is technique. But it's on the list. I remember my mom sent me an email with a bunch of funny little jokes, and one was, "The last thing I want to do is hurt you," but it's still on my list. So technique's the lamest of the three, but it made the list. It's on. Nothing happens without technique. You got to do that, but as soon as possible, I want to get out of having to have my mind on technique and get into the what. So this is the how, technique, process. The better thing is the what, the sound, the sounds and the notes and the lines and all those things. So I want to, I mean, because if, we all didn't know our fingering at one point, so we were very focused on technique, couldn't focus much on the sounds we were making, right? So that's our thing, is to do this as well and as often as possible so that these technical things become habits and marked in my part. So that's why I marked the crap out of my part. So that then this what, and then I get out of this muck as much as possible so that these things are just creating the why, the story, and the paintings and the shapes, and all of a sudden you're with the clarinet here, and then, or the opera of all that you're trying to create. That's the best place for my mind to be able to be. Sometimes I'm there again for 3 or 4 seconds before I think something technical. So I go between. There's a big dance in every performance, and depending on how prepared I am, how much rest I've gotten, how I am with my colleagues that night, there's a bunch of mental aspects for every performance. So then there's the mental aspect of how I practice and the mental aspect of how I perform and how I stand backstage. So
Yeah.
again, the build, be, share, build. Once you build and it ends, there's a part where now you're going to perform, but there's a part and the build ends and the performance hasn't started yet. I call that B. So in the thirds, it was build, share, B. But in this performance circle, sorry, lots of terms, hard to see without seeing the visuals. But the process of training is build, the other circle, sorry, is build, B, share. Build, B, share. As far as timing per performance, build until you can't, and then you're backstage. Just be. Read your inspirational sheet for your mental game stuff, and you're going to practice more later. You can't right now. It's too late. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you fed the dog or not. Doesn't matter. You got to let go of that and embrace what you got and do as well as you can with what you got. You are the best version of you when you do that. And then you cross the line, and then you're sharing. So those mental aspects are a lot. Another mental aspect for when I'm practicing, I've learned quite a bit deeper recently, is when I'm practicing, I am trying to do as well as I can, and I'm putting notes to the tuner, choosing my priorities. Maybe it's an impure note that's in tune first, and then I purify it and it goes out of tune, and then I find a way to get both.
Yeah.
But I have exercises where I just play a bunch of soft notes as pure as I can to the tuner, 20 seconds per note. And I found with moving my air instead of my lips, like all these different ideas that your teachers are telling you about working on your technique. I just do it as well as I can in the practice room now. And the habits are results. I end up building habits, and I'm building habits either way. Your body doesn't discern between good and bad habits, just learns habits. So it's up to us which things we're focusing on and how well. But now I'm not trying to, and the other thing, if I trust that I'm building good habits and then just do good work for 25 minutes at a time, and those habits are bonus, then I don't have to see results in the practice room. So I'm
Yeah.
in a bit of a better mood during practice and away from practice with my friends, or maybe at Fortnite. It doesn't, I'm still pretty bad. I could be better at Fortnite. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Focus on that every time and trust your own process and be building that. It's kind of
Right.
a weird, sideways answer to the mental versus
Yeah. Well, it's a deep time.
physical. But
So
yeah,
many.
the mental's wrapped in all that physical, I think. So it's all, I think at this point, you know, your fingerings and your scales, it's well above 90% mental in what we're doing with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, you always used to say to me, it's not about what you play, but how you think about what you play. Um,
Hmm.
that's, I mean, totally encompassing what you just said.
Yeah, like in routine work, you mean, like when you're doing your technical practicing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the wit doesn't matter what notes you're playing. Like otherwise, there'd be one magic routine we'd all be doing if those were the arpeggios that worked for everybody. But there's all the really I can play those notes too and get that good. Wait, they have a different routine. They play different notes and get amazing too. Yeah. It's the
Yeah, no.
commonality is the approach to learning. Yeah,
Alan Jones,
it's
he's
right.
yeah, he's a Alan Jones is a UTM alum, and his question is kind of along the same lines. I'm going to kind of paraphrase it just a little bit, but so much of what you're talking about, there's a real importance on the language that you're using, and that it's constructive, that it's serving. I know
English.
people get concerned about like, oh, positive. It's like, oh, well, now we're just being disingenuous because not everything is positive. But how do you encourage? People to kind of buy into that idea of positivity as far as or constructiveness maybe of the language that they're using.
Yeah, the buy-in I can only happen by their own realization and their own experience. So us as teachers, we have to lead by example and just keep saying it and keep reminding them, and it'll play out. And that destructive language plays out as well. But I believe change only happens when either where you are gets bad enough or where you want to be gets clearly attractive enough to you.
Yeah.
And it's always a combination of the two. But the negative language, though it's right, when I finish one book, my next book will be called "You're Right." Now what? A lot
Yeah.
of critique about what's wrong and oh, that note's out of tune. Great, but how? Use. So I'm obsessed with constructive language. Yeah, it doesn't have to be positive either, because it's useful to mourn your losses and be upset at times if it gets you through it and has you come back ready to do some more constructive work. And it's all part of life. There is no good without bad.
Yeah.
But constructive is a good word instead of positive. Useful is another unemotional word for what we're talking about, and I'm obsessed with, and that's pretty emotional. But I love no, that's not emotional. Oh shoot, but it's not out of tune. It's sharp or flat or could be lower. It could be higher. It's not an ugly note. It's fuzzy or it's got a crack in the vowel or unclean front or like be way more. And then the other thing is to be more specific. It's another way to get through and be more specific with your language. There's another handout you guys can have, you guys are going to get with different word choice than bright, dark, happy, sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, with a lot of other nuanced words we can use. It's the lamest form of art, unless it's poetry. So I take that back. The music is this beautiful thing, and let's just play music and stop talking about it. That'd be great if it was all awesome, but we also have words to discuss it and talk about it. So, and now it's how creative are those words about it? So the words don't have to be a negative thing. You talk about the buy-in for the positivity, though. Yeah, I think it plays out. It's in, people who, I played a lot of low horn, 5 years of full-time fourth horn.
Mm.
Yay, last horn. And but people would come to me and say, my low range is horrible. And I said, okay, let's start by saying your low range could be a lot better. And they were like, okay, whatever. But I could, as we tripped along a little bit, it started to catch a little bit, you know, and then once that works, there is really, I don't think, any end to how much it could work. It doesn't have to, and it's not guaranteed to, but that word choice is pretty awesome. I was driving home one day from teaching and exhausted on my first year. You remember? We were doing 7 and 6 a.m. routine class and all that. And my wife was living in Philly at the time, so she was going to upper school, so I lived at school and figured out how to be a full-time teacher. And Jesse taught me how to. Thank you. But I was exhausted. One day I was driving home, talking to my wife, and she said, "How you doing?" And I went to say exhausted, you know, and I just went, "Great." Wow. Yeah, actually, I am great. I just taught a bunch of people, and like I did, you know, and then yeah, it was good. And then one other thing I remember and it did, my spirits changed a little bit, you know. And then I also, I said to her, I remember at one point I said, "Am I really here to tell them to pick up their pencil 5 times a lesson?" You know, I'm just like, and then I'm like to myself, "Yes, Jeff, I guess you are because you are doing that. Meet up, you know, so meet them where they are." And then the happier I reminded them, the more they got into it, I think. So it's a learning, you know, the best teacher is teaching.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, the student becomes a teacher. And right away, for me, thank you. But if I was upset about having some aspect of a job that was happening, I was just ignoring reality. You know, that is whatever I need to do to get them to find growth and do that is what I'm there to do. And when I accepted that, it helped a lot. And that was more, I think, word choice and perception choice in shaping. I'll
Yeah.
see it and I believe it instead of I'll wait for proof and I'll believe it once I see it, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was one of the biggest things that you taught me was those like things about my playing that I had grown to assume that weren't very good, and that those narratives really play in your ability to be able to solution find and actually get better. You know, when you tell yourself all the time, "Nope, I can't do this. Nope, I can't do this." Guess what? That happens. You know, and
Yeah.
then really the like motivation to dig into it if you just assume you can't do it. And that's an easy answer. It's an easy out. It's an excuse.
Yeah, and we start living it, you know, or we continue to propagate the lies and all that. Yeah, and it reminded me of another word that I think we started using was hireable, the
Yeah.
hireable line. You know, not good or bad, but is it across the hireable line? That's it. It's unemotional. And
Right.
but hireable, not just good enough for the job, but you know, like most of the finalists can do the job, you know, for the teaching job or any of these jobs. It's to be the one that makes the decision easy for the people hiring or
Yeah.
dating, the one who
Yeah.
makes it easy to marry or whatever, you know, all that same kind. And then it's enough, not enough. There's a line, and it's either enough or not, you know, and that's real simplicity. Not easy, but simple, you know, at least it's just across that or not. And then you're not watching your stopwatch. You're not in there doing 2 hours of practicing and talking about the 2 hours. You're in there till it sounds the way you want it to sound.
Yeah, totally. Somebody did ask, I forgot their name unfortunately, but somebody did ask about what are some of your replacement thoughts for fear, and I thought that's a really great question because that's one of the things that I mean, you had us doing these inspiration sheets, right, which are writing really meaningful things on a piece of paper that you read, kind of part of the magic line method before you walk out on stage. But one of the things that was really beneficial for me was when you were like, because I was like, well, what happens if I get stuck? Like, what happens if I'm not in the zone, you know, and like my mind is racing, you know, which, you know, happens in performance. It's really, really easy to kind of just let yourself go down that path. And you said, well, what about if we create some replacement thought sheets where when you're in the moment, when things start being not optimal or the way that you want them, you have kind of those things. You don't have to have a knee jerk reaction, but you actually have a well thought out. What are some of those replacement thoughts that you think work well?
Yeah, and the great thing about that too is that you can have a knee-jerk reaction, just make it be a reaction into something useful instead, because we're going to react in performance when my mouth is about to go dry, you know. So it's number one is to perform, 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 and walk into your kitchen 30 times a day and play a C major scale 1 octave ascending out of dead silence. If you keep doing that with a great simulation of a real performance, you will learn how you choose fear versus playing it 5 times in a chair in the practice room and note how you feel that fifth time. Pretty comfortable, and you've had enough oh yeah moments to nail it on the fifth version. That's me too. My second version's always better than my first. But see how you feel, and then stand backstage and okay, Carnegie Hall or whatever, and walk out. And then that silence, deafening silence. And really, okay, how am I freaking out? How am I doing this? And all that kind of. So that's where the learning is to perform a lot. And then there's two things. You can just decide backstage to be fearless and live your fearless life. Yay. Haven't met anyone like that. Good for you. Don't like you if you exist. So the other one is you got to be good at getting fearless or calm, present backstage. Walk out, freak out a bit, or do what you do, and then be okay and respond to that, or knee jerk that back into calmness or presence, and then be able to do that 1,000 times each performance. I am, if that helps, that I am replacing for every 5 seconds, and I'm always going toward serving something better than myself. So I end up getting over myself. So the goal and the desired result is get over yourself, Nelsen. But it's by, play this note with your colleague or make this note beautiful. Every single piece I'm playing, no one has ever heard it before. Also, I was president of the International Horn Society as well for a couple of years, and playing in front of 700 hornists it's got a higher risk of potential fear choices, but not if I'm loving that music and love the horn. And 700 hornists, who's a better audience to play for? Actually, if you can make enough fake positive, good positive thoughts that work. So it's getting into serving opportunities. And then for me, my inspirational sheet has pretty recent things. I made one in between the semifinals and the finals. I was the runner-up for both LA Philharmonic fourth horn and Chicago second horn, the year that I then joined Canadian Brass. So I had on my inspirational sheet in between the semis and the finals of LA, I'd watched Rocky, so I wrote "Yo, Adrian" down the side of the inspirational sheet, and then I would watch Ghost, and the bad Ghost was talking to Patrick Swayze about, okay, Patrick Swayze was asking, how do you move something in the physical world, and he told Patrick Swayze, well, you take all your hate and anger and everything, and you bring it to this one moment, and then you can make that thing disappear, whatever. So I tried that, and I thought, okay, well, but with my excerpts, it was maybe you can take more of that, your musical inspiration and all of that storytelling thing, and then you can just kind of bring it to the one way of doing the excerpt, and sometimes magic might appear. Sorry, I was told there had to be some magic. So.
I like almost awesome.
Ta-da!
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. No, that's such great stuff.
And find ways of having fun with it. You don't have to be serious to take something seriously. I got that from my parents, and and take it super seriously, but don't take yourself seriously. I was reading Judi Dench quotes today. I was writing something. And it reminds me, actually, what I was reading about her and trying to find the exact quote. It's from a movie called, the best exotic marigold hotel.
Yeah.
And it was near the end. I was cleaning up my office while watching it, and she said, "The only constant in life is change." And I kind of was like, "Whoa!" And I stopped what I was doing and I watched. And then she continued the narration and said, "I think what we actually fear is things remaining the same." It's just like, wow, and that's true. And then as I was writing today, it's kids, in today's society and what's going on now in the world, there's we are fearing things remaining the same a lot, and the uncertainty, there might be some new threats, but uncertainty is the same. It's still here. Our performance fears are because we're trying to be certain about the future. We can't do that. We can't be sure. And then kids can, though. I think kids get to be kids and be present, and they haven't had enough things in their past that they're holding on to, fearing it remaining the same in the future.
Right.
So they just, okay, it's not, they haven't had enough. And then if they get burned enough times, they keep hitting their heads. If you're my sons, but so does their father. So.
Oh my gosh. Hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, this was I think this is a really important question. Does it work? Does fearless performance work? And I could give a 6 year long answer about how it has worked because I'm living proof that it does work.
Me too. Yeah.
And so are you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you want to talk a little bit? I mean, there's been quite a few people that have been really successful with this method.
Yeah, yeah, and it depends on your definition of work and what success is, because I hope everyone that I've worked with in sharing something that hope would help someone else be a little more fearless, a little bit, can help a little bit, and that means it works. I don't, there's no, and all the jobs I've gotten, I don't think that's really the success that I'm after. I'm super happy in my life, and I have nice marriage and two kids and lots of students that I think are thriving. And so we're working together on this, and the system's become bigger than me for sure, I think, because people like you have taken it onward, and I have horn players all over the world now doing that system, and I've see parts of the stories from Phil's performance written in Korea on their music, and Save the Pigs is written in
Yeah.
anyway, these different stories from Fearless Performance, but it can work. I had one student early on say, "Oh, that Fearless Performance doesn't work." I heard from someone else that they told someone else that, and my thought immediately was, "Yeah, it definitely doesn't. If you will not, if you're waiting to believe it when you see it, a lot of the mental game is not going to work." I don't. I believe because it is. It's a big leap of faith, or a lot of little leaps of faith, or a lot of little baby steps of faith, and doing the small work that builds into success or whatever that is that you want to get. I love there's even a productivity guy, David Allen, wrote a book called Getting Things Done, The Art of Stress-Free Productivity. And he says that you can never do a project. You can only do enough tasks that end up adding together and end up completing the project. So it's all about these little tasks. So it's tough to measure
Mm.
the success of it, but I think both micro and macro, I've had great experiences, success
Yeah, totally.
of
Yeah,
looking at fear and replacing it. That's a simple thing.
yeah. Gary Quo asked a question which kind of inspired.
Oh, we've run out of time. If Gary's asking, yeah, I'm sorry, Gary.
But he asked, and this is so funny that he asked this. I feel like this has come up like we had a phone conversation just a couple days with you about this, and then was talking with you and David Cooper about this on your Instagram musician mindset. But it was, how has your definition of success changed? And I mean, so much of what you just said, it makes so much sense. Like, this stuff works depending on how you view success.
Right.
But obviously, I mean, success for you has had many different. It's looked different throughout the course of your life. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. And yeah, great question. Hi, Gary. Thank you for Wingspan. Amazing piece. He wrote this amazing piece that I got to premiere in LA a few years ago, and lots of people are playing it. Yay! That success is what you choose it to be, along the way. I had a lot of different ideas of success, and they are worked into the Fearless Performance mindset and approaches and methods as well. And one I always thought was, I saw this in a movie, all of my quotes are from movies, of course. Only the mediocre are always at their best. But the quote I was trying to share for this was that a man was on his deathbed, and someone asked him, did you have a good life? And he said, I think so. My two questions that'll tell me if I've had a good life is, did I learn and did I love well? And he said, and I did both of these, and I had a great life. And so I've held that dear since high school. It's so great. My best friend Jay and I just lived that. We appreciate the fact that we appreciate, like total dorks, but awesome.
Yeah.
And then I added the let go. Let go is another big one. So the three big ideas of fearless performance in music and in life is learn, love well, and let go. And even that has recently changed. I think I've talked to you about this, Jesse, but that we're basically, I realized letting go isn't much of an action. Actually, you can't, if you're trying to let go of an emotion, the quickest route to that is is embracing another emotion, a healthy, a better one, or what, unless you won't trying to get mad, then go the other way. But we're basically we are learning what to love well. And in the process of doing that, we'll end up also letting go.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's awesome. But letting go is a result from loving well, of loving this music, this opportunity. That's the big thing of performance we get to share. Yeah,
Yeah, that's so awesome. I love it so much. I
yeah,
like get a little teary now just thinking about like just like I love this whole process and this whole system and that you share it so unabashedly is like it's so great. I'm so glad
yeah,
we're doing this.
yeah. Me too. Thank you. Thanks for asking me.
There's a we you have a little bit of a plug too for upcoming opportunity for those people that are really interested in kind of digging into this, maybe even just dipping their toe into a little bit. Like I said, I could speak a zillion years about my success and not just as a musician, but how this has changed my life for the better. I 100% believe in the ability of this system to really change people's. I've seen it every year when we did those fearless performance seminars, and you watch a bunch of scared 20, 30 people walk in, and then they're walking out a totally different person that believes in themselves. You know what I mean? That's like undeniable. The life altering experience that this is.
I
And
remember one participant, we do the round table at the end, and one participant, he was telling his stories, and says, I was surrounded by all you other horn players. I was doing stuff that I could never do. Oh, sure, I could practice more, sure, but and then he said, and I think before I got here, none of you had met me, but now I don't think anyone has met me. And he did that, and we all cried. Anyway, sorry, it just came to mind when we were. Yeah, it
yeah,
was wow.
that Gabriel.
What?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was such a good comment.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's how everybody feels. I mean, everyone's sitting in that circle, like crying and talking about how, like, I mean, the
I don't
energy
cry.
in the room.
I'm not crying.
Yeah,
I never cry. That's
yeah,
right.
exactly. But can you talk a little bit about that opportunity? And I mean, it's virtual, so everybody has access to it.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
talk
Yeah.
about,
And that's just kind of watching what's happening and not doing it. And I thought, right, and Katie Webb and you and Josh, all these people were like, can we do a fearless camp this year? And so we're doing it. And Jess is going to be a part of it as well. And it's going to be May 28, 29, 30, 31st. So 4 days, and come on, and everybody performs. We get together, break into groups of four, and perform for each other, critique each other, and learn how to take critique, and do some videos on your own of critiquing yourself. And another big tool for fearless performance is success collecting, and talk about one thing you did well. So we'll do a lot of that, and then looking through the different tools and how to approach your build, be, and share phases of constructing, so you can walk out there and learn how to love well and end up letting go. And yeah, so it's those 4 days, and you can go to Opt Collective. It stands for Online Performance Training Collective. So www.optcollective.com, and enroll there. We're doing 40% off as well, the tuition as well for everybody. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
it's in the handout. So if you check out the
Okay, cool.
handout
Right.
and pin down on the comment
Well,
section, and
the hand oot. Yeah.
hoot, yep, you can check it out there and look through that. And there's also a sample schedule, so you can kind of see what you're getting into. And yeah, it's a great system. Totally. I think everybody should do it, even if you're not a musician. It's like I said, just having a world full of empowered people that really believe in themselves would be so great.
Yeah, and
So
I've done it at some business schools and at the Kelly Business School, and for magicians and athletes and all the TED talkers that I've been working with. And so it's definitely, it's performance is performance. So yeah,
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 yeah, it's awesome. Well, thank you, Jeff, so much for sharing your expertise. And personally, thanks for sharing it with me. I'm so glad we get to keep doing this together. There's no
yeah,
feeling like having a conversation like this with you. So
yeah,
thank you for
yeah.
sharing this. And Jeff's got Facebook pages, and I have Facebook pages, and he's got a website, Jeff Nelsen, Nelsen.com. So there's a bunch of places that you can reach out and find out more information about Jeff and the things that he's doing. So feel free I think, check out those pages and stay active.
And with
In the
Canadian Brass as well, we'll be performing
Yeah,
soon, we hope, of course, and we've been replacing our concert dates with everything that was moved, but we're doing online appearances as well. Every Wednesday at 12:30 Eastern, we're live with an Ask Anything. All five of us in the group are on the Canadian Brass Facebook page, and then I'm doing a Friday Musicians Mindset every day at 12:30 with the new first horn of the Chicago Symphony. David Cooper and I are talking about musician mindset stuff. Yeah.
yeah. I've watched a ton of them. They're fantastic, and you get to participate and ask questions and feel like you're actually. It's like a fireside chat. I think that's actually what
Yeah.
David Cooper calls things. Yeah, you get to
That's what he
kind of
calls
be.
his thing. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, awesome. This has
Yeah.
been
Thank you,
so.
Jesse.
Do you?
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. And thank you also everyone else who's hosting all these Keeping the Beat sessions. It's amazing. So you can tune in weeknights, Monday to Thursday at 7 p.m. Central Time, to keep watching Keeping the Beat live. And remember to tell your friends about this program as well. This coming Thursday, the amazing Aaron Dworkin, Sphinx organizer founder, and Andre Dowell, Sphinx organization chief of artist engagement. These guys are awesome. And they'll be talking about diversity, entrepreneurship, and innovation. Any of you who wish to apply to host an episode, send applications via tnmea.org. Thanks for checking us out. And remember, keep breathing, stay fearless, learn, love well, let go. Thanks, Jesse.